how does virtual reality impact our perception of ourselves and also of others?
So starting in the year 2003, we started studying if you wear an avatar, how does that affect you? And so for this interview, I wore my fancy shirt here, and that's helping me because I look down and I see I'm dressed up and it gives me confidence. And we know in psychology, the way you dress, the way you groom, it affects how we behave. The social world is complicated. Of course, we get cues from others, but literally how we are ourselves helps us navigate a situation. Now, in an avatar, you're wearing a whole different body. That body can be taller than you. It can be more attractive than you. It can be a different skin color, a different body shape. And what we've been studying for 20 years now is how does an avatar, this self-representation, when you wear it in VR, how does it change your behavior? A, when you're in the medium, when you've got the goggles on, but more importantly, when you're walking around in the real world, subsequently, a few minutes later, an hour later, does wearing that avatar change you? And what we've discovered is if you are an avatar that's more attractive, for example, you will behave more socially. You'll disclose more about yourself. If you are an avatar that's taller, you'll negotiate more aggressively. And this is called the Proteus effect, the theory that we've coined here. Proteus is a Greek god that could shift identities. And when you shift identity in the real world, there's consequences, good and bad. You become like your avatar.
There's got to be some concerns when it comes to virtual reality and the metaverse. So tell us about that.
So I'm a VR guy. I think about VR pretty much from work when I wake up before I go to bed. It's the medium I use to study. That being said, I'm a VR miser. I don't use it that often. We've got a 30-minute rule, which is after 30 minutes, you take those goggles off, you touch a wall, you go talk to someone, you get a drink of water, and oftentimes there's no need to go back in. So when we think about the downsides of VR, the first one we think about is distraction. We don't want people stepping on cats, walking into plate glass windows, smashing their hand against the wall. We definitely don't want people driving while wearing VR headsets. And, there's some reason to suggest they might. Games like Pokemon Go, people are actually looking through displays to try to find these game characters. So distraction is number one. We think about addiction when experiences in VR can be so perfect and so wonderful. Why do you want to go out into the real world, and how can you make it so that people have a good balance? We think about overuse. So I mentioned my 30-minute rule. We want to prevent something called simulator sickness. You get a little bit dizzy. You kind of feel a little off for a little bit if you're in there for too long. So we think about overuse. And then we think about learning bad habits. So there's certain things that you can do in VR that it's a little different than in a video game. In a video game, you're hitting these little buttons and you're using your hands, and it's fairly abstract. But if you're in VR and there's something that you might not want to do in the real world, maybe that is some kind of a violent activity, or maybe it's some kind of an adult activity. If you don't want to do that in the real world, in VR, you're actually using your body. You're touching things and you're moving and you're using the evolutionary apparatus in your brain that we've been using for thousands and thousands of years. So these experiences, they stick a little bit more. So we think about, I always try to say, VR is great for things that you can't do in the real world, but if there's something that you really would feel bad about yourself if you did in the real world, probably avoiding that thing in VR is a wise choice.